All right, hey everybody, this is Rosh, and you're watching FM9 Basics. This is a YouTube tutorial series that I'm putting together to help new and experienced users program all the Fractal products, including the FM3, the XFX3, and in this case, the FM9. So a little about myself. Once again, my name is Rosh, and I build and program guitar rigs out here in the LA area, as well as online. Some of my clients include Steve Vai, Leppard, Melissa Etheridge, Perfect Circle, Bush, Papa Roach, and more. And I wanted to give back to the Fractal community and show some tips and tricks on how to program all the Fractal products, both in the studio, live, wherever you may find yourself. So this is going to be the third installment of, I guess, a series within a series of these gig-ready presets that I'm building. So one of the things that I do get asked a lot is if I have any presets, on the exchange or any presets for sale. And generally, in the past, I've always been pretty reluctant to do it, mainly because there's so many variables to deal with when coming up with a preset, especially if I'm going to be building a preset for somebody else. So, what's the style of music that person could be playing? What type of guitars do they play? Do they hit the strings really hard? Do they hit really soft? Do they use their fingers? What kind of picks are they using? There's so many different variables that, I never felt like I could do anybody justice about doing any of these presets. Now, if you've been watching this YouTube channel, I have some presets gig-ready presets that I did for the Helix and, just mainly as a, small detour or whatever. And so, I had a lot of requests from people saying, hey, why don't you just do gig-ready presets for the FM9? So this is going to be, again, the third installment of this gig-ready preset series. And my idea is, and my approach is basically going to be, I'm going to be building a bunch of different presets for a bunch of different situations. So I'm going to try to cover as many variables as I can, as many variables as possible that I can. So I'm going to build presets based on maybe you are just the type of user who wants a clean amp with a bunch of pedals in front of it, and then maybe you play a Strat or something like that. Or maybe you are used to a channel switching amp, and then you get all your gain from the amp, and then you use the pedals just mainly as for phasers and different time-based effects and everything like that. So there's, again, a lot of different variables, and, I'm just doing this from a different approach from what I would probably run into and what I've run into with a lot of my clients before. So if you haven't watched the other two videos that I've made so far in this series, basically what I'm going to be doing is building a preset using a clean amp, and then I'm going to be that's what this particular preset's going to be. I'm going to be using a clean amp, and I'm going to be getting all my distortion and gain sounds from Overdrive pedals, and then I'm going to be using some time-based effects as well. And this is going to be using a Suhr modern guitar. So I own a Suhr modern Andy Wood guitar, and this is one of the older models that he had. So it's basically the Suhr modern, but like the Suhr modern shape, but what Andy Wood had a signature version of this, many, many years ago. And the reason why I'm building this particular preset using this particular guitar is because there's plenty of users out there who maybe you use like a Music Man, maybe you do have a Suhr modern, maybe you use some type of, guitar that has a lot of different functionality in it. In this case, this Suhr modern is basically a two humbucker guitar with a 5-way blade switch and then push and pull knobs so that you can split the coils. So the previous two videos I did, one was with a Les Paul and one was with its Strat. So now this guitar that I'm going to be building this with, this is for the user who wants to use a bunch of different pedals in a clean amp, but maybe they use a more quote-unquote modern style of guitar. Maybe your guitar has a lot of split coil functionality. Maybe it's got two humbuckers, and then you've got like, a 5-way blade switch. So this is going to be for the users who use like, PRS guitars, maybe Ernie Ball, Music Man style guitars, maybe Suhr guitars, or maybe you have something that's again, like a EVH style guitar, like the two humbucker style guitar with some split coil is probably going to fit the bill for you. So now, again, with all these gig-ready presets, I never ever want a financial constraint to prevent somebody from using the Fractal product. So if you follow along with this video, I'm going to show you all the settings that I use to build this preset. But if you want a shortcut, if you want to support the YouTube channel, if you really enjoy the content that I've been putting out for the last several years, and you just want to support the YouTube channel, or you just want to, just get this preset quickly, there is a link below in the description, and you can purchase this preset. So I feel like the price is fair. And again, if you don't want to purchase it and you just want to follow along in the video and just get all the settings and build the preset from scratch, that's totally an option for you as well. So let's just kind of go over the signal path and let me kind of walk you through what this guitar can basically do. So right here, I have a neck pickup, and then there's a 5-way blade switch. So in the second position, it actually just switches to a single coil for the neck position, as opposed to the neck pickup. And then the third position is going to be 2 humbuckers. And then the fourth position is kind of like a single coil split kind of thing, like a fourth position on a Strat. It's kind of that out of phase thing. And then the fifth position all the way down is going to be the rear humbucker. Now, again, I'm a huge fan of Andy Wood. I think he's a great, amazing player. And so he has a couple mods in this that involve using the push-pull knob on the tone pot. So he has the quote-unquote shred neck mod. And what this does is it splits the middle coil, the middle 2 positions, so using both humbuckers, and it splits them so it does the outside coils to get kind of a faux telly sound. Now, I can't play anything like Andy Wood, and I'm not really a country player, but it does give like a pretty convincing middle telly sound. Got a lot of twang. And then again, pulling that pot allows you to also split the rear humbucker, so now it's a single coil in the rear position, as opposed to the humbucker. And you can still see that you get all the functionality of the rest of the stuff. So that shred neck mod is really useful for kind of telly sounds and getting a rear single coil sound. Now, it doesn't really do anything for the neck humbucker. You can see that even if I'm in the full neck position and I pull that pot, nothing really happens. Same thing with that, neck single coil position. Nothing's really happening there. So it really is all about that, middle position and that rear position to get these sounds. Now, if you've ever used modern style guitars with a lot of coil splitting or anything like that, one of the biggest challenges that I always run into is that you get a ton of level drop. So if you're going from a neck humbucker, in this case, and then I switch to the single coil, I mean, there's the output difference is pretty drastic. And so I always struggled with getting, my volume levels of everything to work correctly. And again, Andy Wood, and Andy Timmons and a lot of great players, they use compressors to kind of even out the way the split coil type of pickups react. So what I've done is what I generally do is I always use like a compressor. But in this case, instead of, if you watch my video with a Strat, keeping the compressor on, this compressor is almost just using for split coil, if you're ever splitting your humbuckers into something else, to kind of, again, boost the output, also kind of level things out so that when you switch from using a humbucker versus using, a single coil or a split humbucker, you're not going to run into any like level drop. So again, if I use the neck pickup, if I go to the single coil and I have the compressor on, now it's nice and big and beefy as opposed to hearing this difference. You can see the level just drops way drastically versus the neck pickup. Now the compressor's there to help kind of mitigate against that. So you can see the compressor is turning on and it's also around the same output as the humbucker, but you end up getting that, lovely single coil kind of sound. Or if you're playing kind of funky stuff. And then again, for this particular guitar with the shred neck mod, you get that kind of the faux telly thing. And And the other thing is it'll allow you to use the overdrives in the same way so that the overdrives react, because the same way when you use humbuckers versus single coils, and you can see that the compressor is boosting the level a little bit going into all these. So if you are using any of the overdrives with any of your split coil style pickups, the compressor will help even out the output going into the overdrive, which feeds the amp. So that's kind of always my approach with this guitar and guitars like it. I have a bunch of other guitars that also have like a bunch of different ways to split pickups and modulate. And again, many guitars in the past I've owned where, I'm trying to split coil and, do inside, outside, parallel, all this kind of stuff. And I always struggled with trying to make sure that everything was even in volume and all the overdrives and amp react the same way. So this is definitely going to be a key component to this particular preset. Now, we have a volume pedal right here, and it's going to be tied to expression pedal number 2. So just make sure you use pedal number 2 if you want to control the volume. And again, it's always going to be on, and you have 2 different options of placement. So if you like your volume pedal in front of your drives so that, it will reduce the gain of the drives, you can leave it in this position. But if you want to use the volume pedal so that the drives, it doesn't interact with the gain of the drives, and you want to keep the same gain without affecting the drive, but you just want to change the volume, put the volume block after the amp right here, and then make sure you save it. So again, 2 different options. If you are a brand new user to the Fractal universe and you're just stumbling upon this video, if you've always been using overdrive pedals with a volume pedal or whatever, this is definitely the position to keep it in. And of course, you can put the volume pedal here as well after your drives, before the amp. And the cool thing is you don't have to rewire your pedal board to do that. So, depending on the type of user you are, you can experiment with the placement of this volume block and then use your expression pedal to control it. So remember, just make sure whatever expression pedal you're using, it's calibrated correctly, and you want to make sure it is plugged into pedal 2 on the back of your FM9. Next up, we have a wah. And again, pretty standard generic wah sound. I use the Faz wah a lot, and you can get, and again, this one is going to be tied to expression pedal number 1. So just make sure that your expression pedal is calibrated and plugged in correctly. And again, we're using the patch change reset and the auto engage feature so that whenever you have the wah in the toe forward position like this, you can see that it turns on. And then if you have the wah or in the heel back toe up position, then the wah turns all the way off. And of course, you can leave it about halfway and it'll stay on. So next up, we have the compressor. And again, some people will switch the wah and the compressor in line depending on where they want the position. I'm okay with the wah going in front of the compressor right here so that, you can see that the wah is going to interact with the compressor. And again, I personally do that just because, I don't like that super spiky top end of most wahs. So the compressor just kind of gets it a little bit, kind of smooths out the top end a little bit. And of course, you still get the quacky attack of the wah stuff. And again, for me, I'm mainly a rhythm guitar player and stuff. So I use the wah pedal for all kinds of different things, whether I'm playing a funk gig or if I'm playing a rock gig, it's going to be very useful. So now we've already talked mainly about this compressor. So here are the settings that, I've kind of dialed in for my guitar. You can, of course, adjust the level and the compression. The way I would really approach this for your guitar, if you don't own a Suhr Modern or something like it, is just make sure that you're using the level parameter right here, and you're using this to even out the volume between your humbucker, and then when you switch to a single coil. So you want to get those kind of roughly in the same ballpark. So again, here's the bridge humbucker, and then I turn on the compressor and go into like a, single coil bridge position. As opposed to hearing this difference, here's the bridge humbucker, and then here is the single coil humbucker. Huge difference in volume, and I always struggle with things like that on guitar, more modern style guitars. All right, next up is the 3 drive block section that I've done in the past few presets. The first drive is going to be for clean boosts, the second drive is going to be for overdrives, and the third drive is going to be for distortions. And in each block, I've dialed in basically 4 different versions of a clean boost, 4 different versions of an overdrive, and 4 different versions of a distortion. And of course, they're in line this way, so you can stack them. So you can stack the clean boost into the overdrive, or the clean boost into the distortion pedal, or the overdrive into the distortion pedal, to get you a lot of different sounds. And you are going to be able to adjust these using the performance page, which I'll address later in this video. So the clean boost, again, is to just get the amp to kind of slightly break up. So we got something pretty clean here. And again, I've dialed it in so that if you are on a bridge humbucker and you dig in really hard, it's going to start breaking up. Nothing like too crazy. It just gives that a little bit of grit. And then the clean boost is there to just give it that little over-the-top push. And again, the thing is, if you use this compressor right here, anything that you do with any split coil, single coil, faux single coil sounds will get the drives and clean boost and distortion to interact a little bit more properly. So if you want a single coil sound by splitting your humbucker, but you want the output to kind of remain the same as the humbucker, you want to turn on that compressor as well. So again, see with that compressor on, now we can get kind of in that Texas blues territory. And again, here's that kind of telly middle position. So without that compressor, you still get a little bit of boost, but the output just doesn't hit the amp the same way. You can see all the single coil stuff still sounds like a clean amp. So that compressor really does a lot of heavy lifting in this particular preset. And my approach is generally always stuff like this. Now, in the second position, again, just a different flavor of clean boost. We got the micro boost here. And then in the C channel, we have the SDD preamp. This is the kind of the preamp section of an SDD delay pedal. And again, just different flavors. And they all will interact well with the compressor. Now, if that sting is a little too much in the bridge position, obviously you can just roll off your tone knob a little bit. And of course, this is really great for if you are playing kind of rhythm parts. So you got a lot of different sounds you can get using just a whatever pickup selector, turn on the compressor. And then of course, if you stick to the humbucker position, then you don't need to worry about that compressor being on. And last but not least, we have the esoteric RCB. Okay, so now if you prefer the flavor of one of these channels over the other, so let's say you don't really dig the FET boost, and you really want to start using the micro boost instead, you can, of course, just leave it in this B channel. Make sure you bypass the block, and then you can hit save to save it so that your preset is always going to be turning on the micro boost every time you use the clean boost button. So again, this is going to be a foot controller. This is going to be your layout. So you don't need to have to worry about using any of the factory layouts. I know a lot of new users getting the FM9 right out of the box get confused a little bit about the factory layouts. So I'm using the per preset override function on the FM9 to build a layout so you have access to all your pedals. Again, later on in this video, I will address that as well. So next up, what we're going to do is in here, this drive block is going to be all our different overdrives. Now, I'm a huge fan of Andy Timmons, as many of you have heard in previous videos. I think he's a great player. So this is the BB preamp Andy Timmons. And again, if you turn on this compressor and start using some of the single coil or split pickup positions, that'll help this overdrive kind of interact a little bit better. So right there, I am splitting my humbucker and using it in the bridge position. So without the compressor, it just kind of sounds not that great. That compressor just gives it that little extra push. And again, if you're starting to use some of these overdrives, the compressor also will respond really well with rolling your volume knob back if you need a kind of in between edge of breakup kind of sound. So you can do things like that, or you can do it with the clean boosts, obviously. But, you know, different kinds of combinations of that kind of thing using the split coils and all that will help with the overdrive section if you want to use the compressor. And of course, you can use the compressor even with the humbuckers and get, you know, a little extra push. As opposed to without it. Again, a lot of different options. Next up in the B channel, we're going to be using the Nobelium OVD. This is the Noble Overdrive. I like this overdrive. It's really cool, and the bass response is really going to tailor that sagginess in the low end. So you can definitely mess around with that depending on your guitar. Now, again, you know, I may not have talked about that earlier on in this video. This guitar in particular, and modern guitars like it, usually have high output pickups. So your pickups are generally going to be darker when they hit the amp because they're hitting the front end so hard. So you may notice that a lot of these have, you know, high treble or something like that. So again, feel free to use the performance page to kind of, tailor this preset for your guitars. Next up in the C channel, we got the Clone Chiron, aka the Klon. Again, if I use the bridge single coil, still has a lot of that bite and sting if you want to use that. Last but not least, in this is the Jam Ray. This is the Jan Ray pedal by Vemurum. It's got that kind of like overdriven Fender kind of thing. So again, all these different overdrives there's gonna be one in there that you'll like. So select the channel that you like, and then make sure you save it with the channel that you want. Last but not least, in the drive section is going to be your distortion section. Again, 4 different types of drive or distortions to use. So this is the compulsion distortion, the full tone OCD. You know, pretty great, and again, responds pretty well with a volume knob. And again, cool thing is, if I use the split the single coil, you know, the bridge humbucker into single coil, use the compressor. Kind of that Stratty, you know, Marshall Strat single coil into a Marshall kind of thing. And again, rolling off that tone knob a little bit just to get rid of that bite at the top. So again, if you're just looking for a bunch of different flavors and you use a lot of the pickup selection and split coils in your guitar, this is going to be a great preset for you. Channel B is going to be the Suhr Riot. Again, it's kind of that modded Marshall thing. Channel C is going to be the Box of Crunch. I believe this is the JHS, Angry Charlie, I think, or something like that. But I could be wrong. Feel free to correct me in the comments. Or maybe it's the Box of Rock. I can't quite remember off the top of my head. And last but not least, Channel D is the Klon makes its second appearance here. And again, you'll notice I maxed out the gain. I think the Klon is a cool pedal. I've definitely used it a bunch of times in the studio. So it's got a lot of versatility, and you'll notice I dialed in the level way back because as you increase the gain on these Klons, they also hit the front end of the amp a lot harder. So this one's a little less quote unquote Marshall-y. This is definitely just more of like that really cranked up Fender kind of sound. Cool. So again, feel free to change whatever channel you want and then make sure you bypass the block and hit save. All right, next up, we got the Deluxe Verb Normal. This is just the amp block. I've kind of dialed it in for a generic clean sound. And again, with a lot of these Fender amps, I definitely look for the headroom parameter and try to make sure that I get somewhere close to it so you get that, edge of breakup thing. So if I dig in hard, you can see it's starting to grit up. But if I go to, for example, single coil, doesn't really hit that. So, some of the pickups might be kind of anemic. So again, that compressor comes in handy. And again, that compressor, you can turn it on, use the humbuckers if you want kind of more of a jazzy sound. Okay, so a lot of versatility. Again, this is the Deluxe Verb Normal. So if you have a Deluxe Reverb, the normal side has two inputs. The normal side interacts just much better with overdrive pedals, so I find I always use that on the real amp, and then this is the Fractal model of it. Next up is going to be our modulation and time bass, kind of sounds. Here I just have a chorus, and I'm going for that kind of 80s. And again, adding that compressor will just kind of level out, get that volume nice to sit nicely. Sounds really nice with single coils. Of course, if you don't have the compressor on, you start using some humbuckers. Also great, Next up, so also this is going to be tied to the tap tempo function, and you can use the tap tempo function if you'd like. So the chorus will kind of be that swirl that you hear in the chorus will be mostly in time. You can, of course, set it to a fixed tempo if you'd like. So just click this drop-down menu and select none if you just want to have a fixed tempo for where the rate of the chorus is. Especially if you like a more swirly chorus, increase the rate, or if you want like a slower chorus, decrease the rate, and you can have it be independent of the tap tempo. Next up, we have the delay. And again, I have it set for tap tempo so that it's going to do quarter notes. I think it's a pretty great delay just kind of stays out of the way. And that little warble and modulation out of pitch thing, just helps you like set a nice little pad. So you see that delay just kind of stays out of the way, especially if you have a busy part or something, like that just adds that extra, fluff around the note or whatever you want to call it. But again, stays out of the way. And it's pretty useful when you're soloing as well. So I really like that. A fan favorite for a lot of people. So if you want to have the delay be at a fixed tempo instead of using the tab tempo, of course, select none right there. Next up, what we're going to have is the reverb. And again, this is a pretty generic studio reverb sound. I've used it in the other presets in this series. Just adds a little bit of, sound of the room. Just like so that your amp doesn't sound super dry like this. Like right up against your eardrum. I just want to give it a little bit of space. Next up, this reverb, we're going to be using one of the cloud style reverbs. Again, big fan of the Strymon pedals, the big sky and all that. So this is going to be for, really nice, cool ambient sounds. If I turn on that compressor. So you can hear that compressor really helps just get that, your single coil or any type of split stuff just to kind of work together. Now this filter block right here is just for a volume boost. So of course, we're guitar players. We love to play guitar solos. So if you need to boost your volume, all this filter does is, you see it doesn't EQ anything, but it just adds us 4 dB of volume right to your, to the output. So here it is without it. And here it is with it. Just gets louder. Next up is the cab block, and we're using the Dynacab. Here in the preamp section, I've done the low cut and the high cut, 80 hertz and 8,000 hertz, just so that it doesn't conflict with the bass, the kick drum, and then the high cut is so that it doesn't compete with cymbals and everything like that. Again, this preset is mainly used, the use case for it is to be used live, not in the studio. I mean, I guess you could use it in the studio if you like the sounds, but I mean, I'm definitely would say if you are in a cover band, if you need a wide variety of sounds, you're jamming with your friends, you got rehearsals and stuff, this is the type of preset where you can load it onto your FM9 and take it to a gig to net. So right here, I've used the Dynacabs, and again, we're using the Deluxe Reverb, a dynamic mic, and a ribbon mic. Pretty standard peanut butter and jelly, bread and butter kind of combo. And again, this is just, the positions just get the tone to be nice and, bright without being too harsh. Now, last but not least, this is the output section of the preset. Now, you'll see that we have output 1 and 2 chained off with cabinet simulation here. So if you are using the FM9, again, you put it out of the box, you just got out of the box, use output 1 or output 2 to plug into your full range monitor or your studio monitors. And the cool thing is this allows you to also go to front of house. So if you are taking this to a gig, you can go direct out of output 1 or 2, direct to the sound engineer, and you can have independent control between what is being sent to front of house and what's being sent for your stage volume. So for example, if you use something like a Fender FR12 or a Head Rush, you could send output 1 to that, and then you can use the output 1 knob to control your stage volume, and then output 2 could be sent to the mixing engineer, the sound guy, And that you can just leave alone so that you can turn up your volume using output 1 for your quote unquote head rush or your Fender FR12 or your full range speaker. And then output 2, you can just leave alone and it won't affect what's going to the sound engineer. Now, this output 3, you can see it shunts off before this cabinet block, and it is used for the users who are planning on using some power amp going into a traditional guitar cabinet. So if you're using something like a Seymour Duncan Power Stage or Matrix GT 800 effects, and then you're using that to power a traditional guitar cabinet, make sure you use output 3 on the FM9 and plug that into the power amp. Make sure output 3 on your FM9 is turned fully clockwise, and then you can also then you control your stage volume using the power amp volume. So on the Matrix, it's usually the A or B knob. If you use the Seymour Duncan, then it's the big volume knob, obviously. So if you need more details on how to use the outputs correctly, I have some other videos on this YouTube channel that you can totally do that with. So feel free to check those out. And you can, of course, email me directly if you need any other help getting this preset set up for your particular setup. Now, next up, very shortly, we're going to be addressing both the performance pages as well as the foot controller. So I'm using the per preset override function so that this is going to override everything that you have in your layout, so you don't have to worry about assigning your foot switches. Again, if you go to a factory layout like this, this can be really confusing for a lot of new users. Sometimes you build a preset and you go, hey, where are my effects? I want to turn on my overdrive. How do I do that? I've done that and done the heavy lifting for you so that you can have access to your clean boost, overdrive, distortion, all your stomp boxes. And of course, you have the tap tempo and your tuner and the compressor and the big reverb. So at this moment, what I'm going to do is I'm going to transition to an overhead shot so you can kind of see how we can navigate using the FM9 for this particular preset. Now, in this section right here, you can see that if you start up the FM9 or in the stock default view, you're going to see that you don't have your performance pages. So the first thing that you're going to want to do, of course, is hit the page right button right here. And this gives you access to perform PP. So this is the performance page per preset. And so what this allows you to do is that you can see here that we can control all these parameters using the A, B, C, D, and E knobs. So just like, if your traditional stomp boxes. So if you want to change the gain on your amp, you can just turn up this A knob. If you need the amp to be louder or quieter, you can turn up the B knob. Now, the next section right here, you can see it says overdrive gain, overdrive tone, overdrive level. And so if you turn on the overdrive with this foot switch, you can, of course, adjust the parameters using the ABC knobs, the C, D, and E knobs, just like a standard stomp box. So you'll see in the second row right here, if you want to adjust any of these other parameters, like the clean boost. So for example, the clean boost level and drive attached to this foot controller can be controlled with A and B. So again, I'm using the nav buttons to go up and down. And of course, the distortion, drive, tone, and level for this one can be controlled with these knobs. So on the fly in the middle of the gig, you can leave it on this page. Doesn't matter about, even if you turn on the delay, the big reverb, any of these, it will remain on this page, so you can adjust any of your tones on the fly, especially if you find that you're in the middle of a gig or a rehearsal or something and you need to adjust the level of the overdrive. That's a very common parameter. Every guitar player who has ever played a live gig with their pedal board has crouched down at some point and turned their pedal up or down. So this allows you to do that. So just keep in mind that the nav buttons are going to adjust between the two rows right here. Now, if you've been using the FM9 for a little bit, you may be wondering, how do I navigate between my presets? So one of the things that you want to do, of course, is always hitting the home button. Hitting the home button once, and then it'll present. You'll be presented with this page, and you can use the value wheel to navigate between other presets. As you can see, the layout is going to default to whatever layout you have. So in this case, this is just kind of a factory layout. Our presets are here, banks are here. I have other videos going more in depth into the factory layouts if you do choose to use them. But when you load this particular preset, just make sure that it is going to be, overriding the first factory layout. Well, not technically overriding it, but just it's going to be in lieu using the per preset overriding, not overwriting. Okay. So you have access to all your stomp boxes. You have your tap tempo and everything like that. If you hold down the tap tempo, it will turn on the tuner. And of course, you have access to all these different effects that you have here. Again, whenever I'm using a preset like this, I would definitely leave it in this performance page. You can do that. Now, last but not least, and I think this is probably going to be the most important thing, I'm going to transition back to FM9 Edit. The last thing that we want to do, of course, is make sure that we're using FM9 firmware 8.01 or later. So if you haven't updated your FM9 to the latest firmware, just make sure that you go into the Tools menu, use FractalBot, follow the prompts, and update to 8.01 or later. If you use an earlier firmware, this preset won't load correctly. So make sure you use at least 8.01. That is the latest firmware as of recording this video. And that's probably the most important part. So just make sure that you are doing that. But other than that, thanks so much for watching. If you've made it this far, I really appreciate it. And the community is so great. For those of you who have already purchased some of my previous presets, I really want to thank you. You guys are really, really supportive. And, I'm super grateful that you find value in what I do. So I think that's going to wrap it up for this video. I think that if you, again, are using a modern style guitar and with a lot of different functionality tone-wise, and you need a preset that's simple to operate, I think this preset is going to do it for you. So if you guys need any help programming any of your Fractal products or getting this preset to, load into your FM9 directly, feel free to contact me directly and we can set up a one-on-one session and, help you program all your Fractal products, get the most functionality out of your unit. So outside of that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.
I'm falling with you, I'm standing with you.